My name is Kelly Traveley-Hack, General Manager of Canning's Employees Credit Union, and I'll be moderating this evening session. As you're all aware, at the start of June this year, CECU changed medical insurers for a medical plan, and we transitioned from the GenMed medical plan, which was covered under Beacon, and we went back to our CECU Care Plan, which is insured by CECU, which is now insured by CECU. Today, we partnered with the CECU team to provide an educational webinar to help you understand the medical plan a bit better and to provide you with the opportunity to ask questions that you may have. So before I introduce our presenters, just a few housekeeping rules. Microphones are going to be muted throughout the presentation. However, if you have questions, you can place them in the chat box during the presentation. And they will be answered during the Q&A sessions. During the Q&A session, if there is any question that you need to explain yourself, you can raise your hand and we will unmute the microphone. So we want to extend a warm welcome to the CECU team. And with us this evening, we have, it's 3 members of the team who are going to be presenting. We have Ms. Crystal Bunting, Manager of Client Relations. Crystal is a seasoned insurance professional with over 20 years experience specializing in group health and life. She's known for building strong client relationships, solving problems, and delivering results. Crystal holds industry certifications, including the FLMI, along with an MBA and a Master's in Data Science. She currently serves as Client Relations Manager at CECU, supporting clients across multiple markets with a people-first, solutions-driven approach. Next, we have Talia Simpson, a Client Relations Officer. Talia has been in the financial sector for the past 22 years, starting in investments, and for the past 10 years in the insurance industry. She is very customer-centric and strives to ensure that every customer's experience is positive, warm, and an engaging one. Her daily goal is to ensure clients feel like family and it's not just business. She believes in continuous studies and development and is a Senior Associate in Customer Service in the insurance industry, a certificate in business management, and a bachelor's in international relations from the University of the West Indies. She's Client Relations Officer at CECU and specializes in group health and life business. And last but not least, we have Chanel Mohammed, Client Relations Associate. She has over a decade of experience in insurance administration and customer service and provides expertise in managing client renewals and proposals, onboarding new group plans, generating client reports, addressing all the queries, and delivering presentations. She works closely with the brokers, agents, and the internal team on employee benefits matters. Her strengths include stakeholder communication, presentation delivery, and high-level client servicing. Chanel holds an FLMI Level 1 certification, a BSc in Management Studies with minor in Economics, and a Master's in Instructional Design and Technology. She's recognized for operational efficiency, exceptional customer service, and a strong record in supporting employee benefit solutions with professionalism and care. So a warm welcome to the CECU team, and we really look forward to this engaging session. I now hand things over to you guys.
All right, good afternoon. Thank you so much, Kelly. I'm going to run through a presentation that we have prepared for the CECU team, which would be you guys. As Kelly would have mentioned, there will be a Q&A segment where you'll have the opportunities to ask you any questions that you may have. So please post them there so that you don't forget. We're going to be running through the medical, then the preventative, and then the dental and vision. So I am going to share my presentation now. All right, and I'll be turning off my camera. All right, so if I could just get a little confirmation that everyone is seeing. All right, great. Okay, so let's go. All right, so today this is just a little table of contents of what we'll be running through. Looks like a lot, but we're going to get through it in record time, and then we'll be able to answer any of you guys' questions. So this is just a little bit about us. This is about Sagicor and some of our values, what our vision is, and what our brand is. And to the bottom right, we have some of our ratings by external third parties, which speaks to our stability as an organization. This is just to give you an idea of where Sagicor operates in the Caribbean, and specifically the Southern Caribbean. So you would see that we have the leading market share in Barbados, and we have some high market share in the Eastern Caribbean. And in the Trinidad market, we are the largest player in traditional business with 29% of the market share. And this just speaks to how expansive we are as an organization. We have over 600 advisors, 1,300 team members, and 400,000 customers and insureds. And we've been along a very long time, guys, over 180 years within the Caribbean. So we have a solid track record. Very quickly, we're going to run through what our value proposition is and basically what you would be privy to as a member of a Sagicor plan. So we would be able to partner with Cannings in terms of wellness and member education. You guys would have access to the Carry Care card, which is actually a triple feature card, and we'll talk a bit about it a little later. But basically, one of the primary use of it is to be able to swipe for your medical, dental, optical, and preventative care. You'll be able to swipe at any of the providers on our network and only have to pay your deductible and the co-insurance that you are responsible for, which is generally around 30% on this plan. The second feature is that there are discounts through the Medicard merchant discount directory, where you would have access to over 500 different providers that is on the Medicard listing, and you could get discounts in areas from the grocery to rituals to pharmacies to bookstores. And the third thing that it does is that it grants you access to our international provider network if it is that you have a overseas medical emergency. Some of the other things that are part of the value that Sagicor brings, of course, would be that you can electronically submit your paper claims and we guarantee prompt settlement. 95% of our claims will be settled within 5 to 10 business days. So if you have to submit a paper claim. Most of you guys are probably going to be using your Carry Care card to do your regular claims like your doctor's visits, your medication, your dental, your vision, and those are settled immediately if you use the providers on our network. We do have a list of telemedicine providers on our Carry Care network that you can go to, and you can have a telemedicine visit if you don't want to physically go into a doctor's office. And through the telemedicine service, of course, they'll be able to prescribe any prescriptions that you need to get filled. But the convenience is that you don't actually have to go in person to a doctor's office. We do have a client portal, which of course the CECU team is going to be using to help manage the plan along with us. And we do use some analytics and cost management in terms of helping CECU to be able to know what type of wellness initiatives that might be useful to you guys as members. And of course, the cost management part is just our part of monitoring your plan and making sure that there's no fraud occurring and doing our best to keep the cost contained so the plan could continue to give you guys value. All right, so we're going to talk about eligibility and enrollment, and this would apply to new and existing members. So if you all were on the previous plan, what we do is that we consider it a transferred plan, right? So anyone who was on the plan previously would, as of June 1st, be transferred onto this plan. So you don't have to fill out any additional paperwork or anything like that. But if we want to talk about new members, or if you are an existing member and you may be growing your family or adding on dependents, this is what will be applicable to you. So if you're a new member, these are the underwriting requirements. You would need to send in an enrollment form and a group health statement for each insured, which is you and every dependent that you want to add. If you have a child under 2 years, a pediatrician report will also be required. There are some underwriting exceptions. So If we have an open enrollment drive, then the underwriting requirements above may not apply for a certain age bracket. And if you are already on the plan and you are going to add a newborn child, if you notify us within 31 days of the birth, we would add the child on without any underwriting. And here we're just going to talk about who is eligible to come onto the plan. So of course it will be the member as well as the member's spouse. So that is either if you are married or if you have a common law spouse. So in Trinidad and Tobago, the law for common law is actually you need to be cohabiting for at least 5 years. But for the purposes of insurance, we have softened it to 2 years. So it's either your married spouse or your common law spouse can be enrolled onto the plan as well. And dependent child or children, so it can be your child by either birth, a legally adopted child, a child that you have legal guardianship for, or the child of a common law spouse who resides in the same household as you. So dependent children will be covered up to age 19 or age 25 if they are enrolled at a tertiary level institution on a full-time basis. If you are not currently on the plan and you wish to join the plan, new members to the plan must be age 59 and under to be able to join. All right, so we're going to get into what your major medical coverage is. And this depends on whether you are active or retiree. The active plan runs up to age 65 and the retirees goes from age 65 to 99. So we could start off with talking about the major medical maximum. So the actives have a 1 million major medical maximum and the retirees have a 500,000 major medical maximum. The benefit period for the actives is a 3-year renewable benefit period. What this means is that at any snapshot in time, over a 3-year period, you have $1 million available to you. So a lot of people often get confused with what 3-year renewable means. So if you wanted to calculate how much major medical you had left as an active, you would look at, for example, let's say the plan was in existence for the last 5 years. We know it's now starting, right? So if you have $1 million available as your major medical maximum, what you would look at is how much claims have you incurred in the current year and the 2 previous years and subtract that from your major medical. So let's say, okay, the plan has now started in 2025, you have the full 1 million. If you want to understand what you have in 2026, you would be subtracting the claims you did for 2026 and the claims you did for 2025. In 2027, it would be the claims for 2027, the claims for 2026, and the claims for 2025. Now, when we roll into 2028, it's still just 3 years we're looking at. So it would be the claims for 2028, 2027, and 2026. Any claims that you would have incurred for 2025 on the medical portion of the plan would have dropped off. So that's what we mean when we say 3-year renewable. For the retirees, of course, it's lifetime. So when you become a retiree, the plan transitions to a lifetime type plan, which means the 500,000 would be what you have available to you for the length of time that you remain on the plan. It does not renew like the active portion of the plan does. And then we move on to the deductibles per calendar year. For actives, it is $900, and for retirees, it is $1,200. And the deductible is just meant to be satisfied on the medical once a year. And that is the amount that, of course, that you satisfy before the plan starts reimbursing you. Deductibles per family, for actives, it's set at 3, and for retirees, it's set at 2. What this means is that for any member, only the first 3 persons, if they have family coverage, have to satisfy that $900 deductible. From the 4th insured under the member, that person will start getting reimbursed from the first claim that they submit. With retirees, of course, it's 2. So retirees, it would be the first 2 persons covered under the plan are the ones to satisfy deductible. And from the 3rd person, they start getting claims back from their first claim. Well, reimbursement from their first claim. In terms of the coinsurance percentage, it is at 70%, which means the plan will reimburse 70% of your eligible expenses under medical part of your plan, and you as the insured will be responsible for 30% of those expenses. Of course, you have to fulfill the deductible first. And then we have the pre-existing condition maximum. This would not apply to the members that have transferred across from the Gen Med plan. This would only apply to brand new members. So if you're a new member coming on the plan, you would have $2,500 available to you for any pre-existing condition. So now a pre-existing condition is any condition that you would have had existing before you came on to the medical plan, and we would only reimburse up to $2,500 for that specific condition during your first 12 months on the plan. After that 12 months has elapsed, you can claim for that condition up to the major medical. So a common one is maybe you have hypertension, right? If it is a pre-existing condition and you are a new member coming on to the plan, then you would only be reimbursed up to $2,500 for that hypertension for the first 12 months that you are on the plan. Daily room and board. So this refers to if you have ever had a hospitalization or you send in to us a pre-certification to be done, this daily room and board covers what the plan covers for the actual room that you would be in the hospital. So whether it's a private room or a semi-private room, this is what will be reimbursed per day for the room itself. So of course, these are the maximums here: $2,500 for overseas non-CARICOM, $700 for local CARICOM, and the intensive care non-CARICOM, $3,000 a day, intensive care CARICOM, $1,000 a day. Private duty nursing refers to if a nurse is required to come and see about you at your residence or at the nighttime in the hospital. So how we reimburse for it is that we reimburse for it in 8-hour shifts, and there are 3 shifts in a day, 2 day shifts and 1 night shift. So for example, if it was at your private residence, the total reimbursement for a 24-hour for 1 day would be 75 by 2, which is $150, and then $100. So it will be $250 maximum per day. If you're in the hospital and you require overnight shift, we will reimburse $120 for that 8-hour shift. And overall, for private duty nursing, we will be reimbursing up to $20,000 in any calendar year. One thing to note is that the major medical coverage is available to all of the insureds and your dependents. So for example, if you're a member and you have your spouse and 2 children covered under the plan under you, you have $1 million in coverage, your spouse has $1 million in coverage, and each of your children have $1 million in coverage. If you're a retiree, same thing. Yourself have $500,000, your spouse who's under you on the retiree plan has $500,000, and if you have any children still covered under you, then they would also have $500,000 in coverage. So here we will just be touching on what is covered for your doctor's visits and all these different types of visits, right? So these are the maximums, of course, under the actives and retirees. Your doctor's visits, whether it's office, home, hospital, these are the reimbursement levels. You'd be receiving 70% up to the maximum of $200, for example, for office visits. For specialists, 70% up to $300 on the active plan and $250 on the retiree plan. Psychiatrist visit, 70% up to the $200 on either the active or retiree plan. For SAGICOR plans, you actually do not need a referral to be able to go to a specialist. If you need to go to a specialist, you can go directly without the referral from your GP, and the plan will reimburse for it. We also have covered psychologist benefit, $200. You have a maximum of 20 treatments per calendar year. For the psychologist benefit, physiotherapy, $150 is the maximum, and you have 20 visits per year as well. You also have an acupuncture benefit and a chiropractic benefit. Both of these are $200 per treatment, and each one has 20 treatments per year. All right, so we're going to talk a bit about the maternity. So if you are being transferred across to this plan, the waiting period does not apply on the maternity, right? All pregnancies will be considered transferred, and any claims for them will be honored. If you are a new member, or yourself or your spouse, becomes pregnant after this plan has started, then there's a 10-month waiting period for any benefits for maternity to be paid. So the maximum for normal delivery is $5,000. For cesarean section, the maximum is $8,000. So the only caveat with cesarean sections and extrauterine pregnancies is that we would reimburse slightly differently if the cesarean section is deemed an emergency C-section. Then we will treat it as a surgical procedure as opposed to implementing this $8,000 cap. However, it must have arisen out of what we term complications of pregnancy. And these are the conditions that would make it complications of pregnancy for the cesarean section to be reimbursed as a surgical procedure. So we have the hyperemesis gravatum, preeclampsia, toxemia with convulsions, and then point 2, which speaks about a condition requiring medical treatment prior or subsequent to termination of pregnancy, the diagnosis of which is distinct from normal pregnancy, but which is adversely affected by pregnancy or is caused by pregnancy, such as acute nephritis, nephrosis, cardiac decompensation, missed abortion, disease of the vascular, hematopoietic, nervous or endocrine systems, and similar medical conditions. So there is some parameters regarding how a cesarean section may be reimbursed as an emergency C-section. And then, of course, we have the miscarriage, dilation, and curettage and prenatal maximum, which is $2,000. And it should be noted that this comes out of the normal delivery maximum. So if you use up your $2,000 in prenatal, then you will have $3,000 remaining for the normal delivery. All right, and this, we're going to talk about the airfare and ambulance benefits. So this really talks about transporting you to get your medical treatment. So there's the airfare benefits. If you have been pre-approved for treatment abroad, right? And pre-approved means that the treatment is either not available in Trinidad, or it may be available, but not any time frame that you need to get access to it. We may pre-approve you to get treatment abroad. And this benefit would cover the transport on a commercial aircraft to get you to the place that you're going to get treatment abroad. The maximum for actives is $10,000. For retirees, it is $5,000 per calendar year. The emergency air ambulance benefit, this is what we see happening in a life or death situation where the person is unwell and unable to travel on a commercial aircraft to get treatment, emergency treatment in another country. We will charge an air ambulance for you. The maximum that we would cover per calendar year is $25,000 US for actives and $18,000 US for retirees. What you need to understand is that this maximum does not reduce your major medical maximum that you have available to you. So if you have 1 million in coverage, the 25,000 does not come out of that. It is a separate benefit. And then, of course, we have the emergency local ground ambulance benefit, which is reimbursed at 100%, and repatriation of mortal remains, which speaks to if yourself or one of your dependents on the plan passes away and they are out of the country, we would cover up to $20,000 to get those remains back into Trinidad. For dependent children, age 12 and under, we will also cover the cost of one accompanying adult under the airfare benefit. If it's an emergency air ambulance, you usually have space for one person to accompany the person who's needing the treatment abroad. All right, so these are some of your other major medical coverages. So we have radiotherapy, chemotherapy, and dialysis, all reimbursed at 70% after the deductible, but there's a maximum of $150,000 per calendar year for actives and $100,000 per calendar year for retirees. Congenital birth defects is covered up to $100,000 per calendar year for actives, but it is not covered under the retirees. Surgical benefits, in brackets, you're going to see R&C fees apply, 70% after the deductible. So we're just going to touch a bit on what R&C means. So R&C refers to reasonable and customary fees. So every insurer has a R&C listing that they refer to for any surgeries that come into us to reimburse, right? So typically, if you have a scheduled surgery, you'll be able to get from the hospital what is called like an invoice or a pre-certification invoice, right? You can send that in to us, and within 48 hours, we'll be able to turn around a pre-certification letter to you, which says what the plan is going to pay out for your specific surgery and what you as the member or the insured will be responsible for paying, right? Now back to the RNC list. This listing has, and all insurers have it, guys, this listing has what is considered reasonable and customary for every type of surgery that is done locally. And we use that to be able to set the standard for what is reasonable and customary for a specific surgical procedure. So for example, we know that the surgical procedures the cost of the surgeon's fee might vary by depending on the surgeon that you go to, maybe which part of the country, which facility you go to, right? But we have something that is determined what is reasonable and customary. So for instance, if you have a surgical procedure to be done and the RNC for it is say $10,000, but you bring in a letter to us saying that the surgeon's fee is $15,000, we will only be reimbursing 70% of the $10,000, which is on our RNC listing. All insurers have it. This is not unique to Sagicor, but I would say that in terms of in the industry, we are on the higher end of how we reimburse for surgical procedures. In terms of the anesthetic benefit, that is calculated as a percentage of the surgical benefit. So it's 25% of the surgical reasonable and customary fee for the particular surgical procedure. In terms of prescribed drugs, whether they are generic or brand name drugs, we will be reimbursing 70% after the deductible is satisfied to a maximum of $5,000 per calendar year. When we talk about prescribed drugs, we are referring to third schedule drugs, right? Which are the drugs that are listed in our laws as drugs that require a prescription, because you can go to the doctor and he may write up a prescription. Let's say you have the flu, right? He might write up a prescription and say that, okay, you need some Panadol, you need some cough syrup, and you need some antibiotics, right? What would be reimbursable on that prescription, of course, would be the antibiotics, which are the regulated drugs. Your plan does not cover over-the-counter drugs. No medical plan in Trinidad does. So the maximum per calendar year for prescribed drugs is $5,000. In terms of durable medical equipment, 70% after deductible, up to a calendar maximum of $20,000. So durable medical equipment, that is things like your crutches, if you have to get a nebulizer, a wheelchair, any type of prosthetics, that is what that applies to. Miscellaneous benefits, 70% after deductible, and there's a calendar year maximum of $10,000. So your miscellaneous benefits, when you go into the hospital to have a surgical procedure done, the bill will be broken down to different components. So it would have like your room and board that I mentioned. So there will be a fee for your room. There will be a fee for the surgery, right? The surgeon's fee. There will be the anesthetic fee. There will be the fee for instance, the theater. There will be a fee for any of the drips, the bandages, the bed sheets, all of those things, the syringes. Those things in particular fall under the miscellaneous benefit, right? So that would be that miscellaneous benefit covers, like I said, the syringes, the theater, any other items that they would have used on you in the hospital. And then, of course, you have your diagnostic benefits. And here we have listed x-rays, blood work, CT scans, PET scans, and MRIs. But that is just some of the things that the diagnostic benefit covers. It would also cover things like if you have to have a colonoscopy to diagnose what is wrong with you, or endoscopy. So any type of test or any type of test that you have to do to diagnose what may be wrong with you, that is covered under your diagnostic benefit, and it would be reimbursed at 70% after the deductible. And this is just some of the internal plan limits. And your plan covers, as you can see, your plan covers a myriad of things, but there are these three components that actually have what we call lifetime maximum. So this is the maximum that would be paid out in these three areas for the length of time that you are on the plan. So we have mental and nervous. The lifetime maximum for that specifically is $25,000, and it includes any of the claims paid under your psychiatrist's benefits, psychologist, and any medication related to these disorders. You have an HIV/AIDS lifetime maximum of $50,000. So all claims paid out for HIV/AIDS or related illnesses will be capped at $50,000. And then you have transplants at $250,000. And this is claims for transplants of any of the following: heart, liver, lung, kidney, or bone marrow. And I'm going to hand you over to Talia to start walking you through the preventative care component of the plan. Talia?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I am Talia Simpson, the Client Relations Officer, and I am just going to continue where Crystal left off from, and I'm starting with the preventative care. And that is an aspect of our health plan that we are really passionate about, because even though we are insurers and we're here to step in when you're sick, we actually want you to be healthy. So we try to encourage our clients to try and go and get themselves checked at least once a year, right? So what we do is we actually put a benefit onto your plan that allows you to go and get yourself checked up at least once a year, right? And so this benefit is not if you're sick, it's not if you have a backache, it's not if you have a headache or you have symptoms presenting itself. It's you are feeling perfectly fine, all is well, but you're just going by the doctor just to make sure that all is really well, right? We oftentimes see now in the insurance industry that persons are living what they think to be normal lives. They have no symptoms. And then just like that, we have a claim for a major heart attack, right? Or massive stroke. So what we are saying is go and get yourself checked, make sure that your levels are good, make sure everything is fine. And so in order to encourage you to do that, we have put a benefit on your plan of $1,000 for both male and females to be able to go and get themselves checked, right? And so what this preventative schedule looks like is what you're seeing on the screen. For males, it's an annual physical exam, which would include a chest x-ray, complete urine analysis, your blood profiles, which would include things like your HbA1c, CBC, lipid profiles, etc. And then we also have your annual prostate exam or your PSA, right? So the prostate exam is the manual testing. And we know some people are, a bit adverse to doing that type of testing. So you have your PSA, which is really just a blood sample. So it's much easier. And then you have your fit test, which is where they examine your stool, right? And then you also have colonoscopies, and we do adult immunizations as well, up to a maximum of $500. And all of these will be included in one doctor's visit. So you can't go by multiple doctors to have each test done, right? So you're doing these things by one doctor's visit or one medical center. For the ladies, we also cover your annual exam as well, chest x-rays, complete urine analysis, your blood profile testing, your gynecologist exam, your pap smears, mammograms, your best breast ultrasounds, your CA125 test, right? Which is also an easier process. It's checking for signs of cancer, but it's just a blood sample, right? And then we also do the stool test as well, which is your fit test. We do that for the ladies as well as colonoscopies and adult immunizations. So if you were to do all of these tests individually, they will definitely come up to more than $1,000. However, there are certain places that offer packages, right? So there are medical centers, wellness centers that offer medical packages, wellness packages, preventative care packages. Persons have it labeled differently, but all in all, it's basically a package that offers you various tests just to see that you are well. And so you can actually get a lot of these tests done for $1,000, right? You just have to find a medical center that offers it. But basically, preventative is just to make sure that you are well. The additional benefit to your preventative schedule is that in insurance, as Crystal would have mentioned, you have something called a deductible to satisfy. If your preventative checkup is your very first checkup for the year, ideally, we should be taking out a deductible, right? Because a deductible comes out from your very first claim for the year. However, to encourage you to do preventative, we do not take out a deductible if your first claim for the year is actually your preventative checkup, right? So we don't take out the deductible, that's one. And two, we reimburse 100% of your preventative up to the maximum of $1,000, right? So this plan is a 70% plan. So ideally, you're supposed to be reimbursed 70% of your eligible expenses. However, because we want to encourage you to go and get yourself checked, we will reimburse 100% of your expenses up to the maximum of $1,000. Go ahead, Crystal. So now we're going to discuss dental, right? And our plan covers 4 areas for dental. So your first area that we're going to discuss is preventative. And again, the word is self-explanatory. It's when nothing is wrong, you're just going to make sure that everything is okay, right? So there's no symptoms. You don't have a toothache. You don't have a cavity, right? You're just going to the dentist either for your cleaning, your checkup. You're going to do an x-ray, make sure that all is well. We would cover 75% of your expenses. And for the retirees, you will cover 70%, right? And then level 2 is restorative. And that's things like fillings, replacements, extractions, treatments, etc. We will cover 75% again for the actives and 70% for the retirees. Level 3 is major restorative, and we would cover 50% for both actives as well as retirees. And that refers to things like treatments like root canal, crowns, replacement, dentures, bridge work, etc. So it's a little bit more major than the basic stuff. And then the fourth level of coverage that we have is orthodontic, right? And that is 50%, but this is for children up to age 19 only, right? So any child under the age of 19, they will be covered for orthodontic benefit. It's not applicable to adults. And on this plan, your dental coverage is $1,500 per calendar year. Your deductible is $250. So you would have had a deductible for medical, but now this is your deductible for dental, right? So $1,500 for both the actives as well as the retirees, and your deductible is $250. Now, Crystal would have mentioned reasonable and customary fees previously. So we also have reasonable and customary fees on the dental side of things. So there will be a maximum for the amount that we will pay for cleaning. There will be a maximum for the amount that we will pay for fluoride treatments, etc. But dental services do have reasonable and customary fees. And as mentioned before, Sagicor typically pays on the higher end of these reasonable and customary fees. And now we will discuss your vision, or what some persons refer to as optical care. So your vision exam, we cover vision exams. Again, you're entitled to a vision exam every 12 months. For your frames, we cover one set of frames every 24 months, right? So you can purchase a set of frames every 24 months. Your lenses is one set of prescription lenses during any 12-month period. And your contact lenses must be medically required. It can't be for style or for fashion, right? So medical contact lenses, again, you're allowed a set up to a maximum of during a 12-month period, right? Now, what we ask is that if you are going to purchase regular lenses as well as contact lenses, you do not purchase the both in the same calendar year, because one is supposed to be the replacement of the other, right? So if you want to purchase regular lenses, you should purchase your contact lenses the following year. If you want to purchase the both at the same time or in the same year, Sagicor will only reimburse for one, right? Because again, one is supposed to be a replacement of the other. Now, another question that comes up a lot is if we honor purchases online, right? A lot of persons are going the route of purchasing their glasses online. Yes, we do honor purchases online, but it must be for both frames and lenses, right? And you just have to provide us with a detailed bill and send it in, and we will reimburse accordingly. So on this plan, your vision benefits, sorry about that. On this plan, your vision benefit for both the actives as well as the retirees is $1,200 for the year, and your deductible is $250. So we talked a lot about what we do pay for right? Which is basically most things. However, we are going to discuss the things that we do not pay for. And the things that we do not pay for are pretty standard throughout the insurance industry. So it's not just surgical related. This is throughout the insurance industry. There are things that insurers do not pay for, right? So on the medical side of things, insurers do not pay for any disability for which the insured individual is not under the continuing care of a physician, right? So in other words, you have gone to a doctor, you went to a doctor 2 years ago, and the doctor would have told you that you had high blood pressure. And he would have written a prescription for you and told you that this is the medication that you need to take in order to get your high blood pressure down. You never went back to that doctor. And you just continued buying that medication to treat your high blood pressure. Now, unfortunately, our pharmaceutical industry is not as regulated as it should be. So there are persons who can purchase prescription medication without a prescription. So what we are saying is once you are going to be seeing a doctor or being treated for a particular ailment, we need you to go back to your doctor at least once a year. So you have to be under the continuing care of a physician. We don't want self-diagnosis or self-medication, right? And in brackets, we have no herbal or alternative treatment. So there are some persons who seek herbal or alternative treatments as a form of treatment rather than going the traditional way of a doctor and medication. But at this point in time, herbal and alternative treatments are not regulated by law, and insurers are required to go with what the law states, right? So we do not honor claims for herbal or alternative treatment at this time. If, of course, the law changes and those things get regulated, insurers will take a look at it. However, at this time, it's not honored. We also do not cover for self-inflicted injuries, right? Any operation performed to induce pregnancy or determine the cause of infertility. So that's referring to things like IVF treatment, etc. Those things are not honored in the insurance industry at this point in time. For vasectomies or any other means of birth control, expenses related to the treatment of alcoholism or drug addiction, those things are not covered. Pregnancies begun prior to enrollment. So let's just say all the persons that are on the plan currently, let's say we have 5 pregnant persons. Those persons their pregnancy will be covered. If, however, after this plan has already started, we have somebody coming onto the plan, somebody has joined the credit union and they're coming onto the plan, but that person is already 5 months pregnant, that pregnancy will not be covered. The person will get coverage, but the pregnancy itself will not be covered. When the child is born, the child will also be able to obtain coverage as well as a dependent. However, the pregnancy itself will not be covered. And then the other point states expenses related to the pregnancy of a dependent child. So what we're referring to is a scenario where we have a dependent child on the plan. Let's say the child is 16 years old and the child has become pregnant. So the child continues to have coverage. The child will remain on the plan, have coverage on the plan. Their dental claims will be honored, their vision claims will be honored, their medical claims will even be honored, but not their medical claims related to the pregnancy. Not any claim at all related to the pregnancy. So once it's a pregnancy-related claim for a dependent child, the claim for the pregnancy will not be honored. And then the last point states that we do not cover for cosmetic surgery unless medically recommended. So basically, if you wake up in the morning and you decide you want to do plastic surgery, we will not cover it. However, if unfortunately you got into a very bad accident and you require plastic surgery, we would honor that claim, right? So the cosmetic claims will be honored for accidental purposes. And now for the exclusions regarding dental, we do not cover for the replacement of dentures which have been mislaid, lost, or stolen. And then we don't cover for devices and supplies which are for cosmetic purposes. Optical, it says that we don't cover for sunglasses. So we often get the question, do you cover for tested sunglasses? The answer to that as well is still no. At this point in time, the insurance industry does not cover for tested sunglasses. And then for eye surgery, it's actually payable under the medical portion of the plan. So if you have cataract, glaucoma, or any sort of condition with your eye, but it's a medical condition, the surgery will be covered under the medical portion of the plan. So now we're going to get to the exciting part of things, right? A lot of people enjoy the swipe card feature on CECU plans. So CECU has over 500 different locations where you can swipe your card and have your claims settled immediately. So this is what the CECU card looks like. Those of you that might have been on the CECU plan before with CECU, you would have known a different card. It was a white and green card back then. This is what the new card looks like. So the first image shows you the front of the card. The second image shows you the back of the card. Another feature of our CECU card is that you also have the Medicard discount, right? So you have the benefit of being a Medicard holder without actually having to pay the Medicard membership fee. So if you were to take out Medicard as an individual person, you would actually be paying $199 a year to get that Medicard benefit. However, as a CECU member, you get that benefit free of charge. CECU pays that on your behalf. So you have access to Medicare discounts at over 500 locations. So when you go to True Value, TGI, KFC, Sports and Games, Rituals, you can pull out your CECU Carry Care card and obtain discounts. Of course, each merchant will have different discounts amounts, right? So the discounts are not decided by CECU. That's a Medicare contract. However, each merchant will have a different discount amount, but you are entitled to a discount once you see that Medicard logo. And if you don't see the Medicard logo, still ask a question because they may have Medicard, but it just might not be any signage, right? But our card for carry care purposes, our card can be used at various locations. So you can use it at labs, medical centers, pharmacies, the T&T MRI center, dental providers, optical houses. And the benefit of having this card is that instead of having to come up with 100% of your expenses and then submitting a paper claim and having to wait for the claim to be settled, once you swipe your card, that claim is settled automatically. So let's just say you have a prescription to fill out and that prescription is for $1,000, right? And it's literally 2 days before pay. Things are a little tight, right? Instead of you having to come up with $1,000 out of pocket, you go with your CECU Carry Care card. And when they swipe the card, they are going to see that all you have to pay is $300 and the plan is going to reimburse $700 straight to the pharmacy. So you don't have to worry about the entire thing. CECU is going to cover that on your behalf. So once you get onto the plan, every person gets a carry care card. And when I say every person, I mean even a 2-month-old baby. So let's just say we have a family of 6. It's mommy, daddy, and 4 children. Each child gets their own carry care card. Mommy gets her carry care card, daddy gets his carry care card. And we do it that way because there's supposed to be no sharing of cards, right? So there cannot be a situation where, let's say you have 4 children and you're taking the eldest child to the doctor, but you forgot his card. So you use your second child's card instead or your third child's card instead. There should not be any sharing of cards, right? Each person has their own card for a reason. The claims have to be tracked and assigned to each insured person, right? So every person is going to get their own carry care card. It's going to have their name to the front, so it's very clear. So whose card is which one, right? When you go to the provider and you're going to do a transaction, you have to present ID. The provider is supposed to ensure that the person using the card is in fact the right person. The provider is going to swipe the card and they're going to get a green screen. That green screen tells them that they can proceed with the transaction. Once they get that green screen, all you then have to do is simply pay your portion of the bill. So as the example provided before, you go into the pharmacy, your bill is for $1,000. They swipe the card, you go by the cashier, they swipe the card, the screen is green. It's going to tell them that you simply have to pay $300 and CECU is going to pay them $700. Crystal? So previously, what used to happen when you go and you do a transaction by a provider, they would print 2 copies of the EOB of the transaction, right? And you would sign one, give it back to them, and you get a copy for yourself. Providers are no longer required to print these transactions. The transactions are now emailed to you, right? So all EOBs or explanation of benefits are emailed to you, and we started that last year, right? So there are some providers that may still print, but they don't need to print. All EOBs are emailed to persons. If you go to a provider and for some reason there's a discrepancy, what we ask is that you do not proceed with the swipe transaction. Instead, do a paper claim, right? So let's just say you go to a dentist, the dentist is telling you that your maximum is $2,000, but you know your plan is giving you a maximum of $1,500. Don't proceed with the transaction. Let's just say the dentist or you go to purchase glasses and they are telling you that you have not satisfied your deductible, but you know you have satisfied your deductible. Do not proceed with the swipe transaction. What we ask is that you submit a traditional paper claim form and have somebody in the claims department review the claim instead. And then point number 7 says no COB transactions via swiping. What we mean by COB is coordination of benefits. So there are some persons that are lucky enough to be on more than one insurance plan. If you are on more than one health plan, right, and you are going to be claiming from your both plans, you should not swipe your CECU card. Your CECU card is going to settle that claim immediately, and it's going to make CECU pay 70% of the expenses, right? And the other 30% still needs to be satisfied. However, when you are on more than one health plan, one plan is referred to as your primary insurer, and the other plan is referred to as your secondary insurer. When you are claiming from the both plans, your primary insurer is the insurer that accepts the majority of the expenses. So they do the majority of the reimbursement. Your secondary insurer typically reimburses whatever your primary insurer did not reimburse that you are eligible for, right? When you swipe the card, Sagicor automatically settles the majority of the claims, and we may actually be the secondary insurer. So instead of us reimbursing 70%, we might actually be responsible for, let's say, 20% of the expenses or 30% of the expenses. But because you swiped, 70% automatically went to the provider. Because remember, swiping of the card settles the claim right away. The provider gets their money overnight. So once you are going to be claiming from your both plans, you fill out the claim form. There's a part on the claim form that asks, are you covered by any other insurance provider? You tick yes, and you indicate who that insurer is, and the 2 insurance companies will settle the claims between themselves. So the primary insurer will get the claim first. They will settle their portion of the claim, and then they will send the claim over to the secondary insurer, who will then settle the difference. And it's typically done to ensure that the insured person gets back at least 100% of their expenses. You will not get back more than 100%, right? Because you can't get back more than you actually paid. However, between the 2 insurers, they try to ensure that you get back at least 100% of your expenses, of your eligible expenses. And you will hear me keep using the term eligible expenses because not all expenses are eligible for reimbursement. So Crystal would have drawn reference to a scenario with over-the-counter drugs, right? Over-the-counter drugs are not covered by insurance companies. So yes, it may have been an expense because the doctor told you to buy Panadol and the doctor told you to buy vitamin C. But those are not prescription drugs. Those are over-the-counter drugs, and all insurers do not cover for over-the-counter drugs. So what the insurers try to do with coordination of benefits is ensure that you get back at least 100% of all eligible expenses. And point number 8 says irresponsible use is equal to immediate termination. What we refer to by irresponsible use is when persons try to commit fraud on the insurance plan, right? So we have seen fraud with the card, we have seen fraud with paper claims, we have seen fraud in various ways, right? So for example, if you lend your Sagicor card to somebody else for them to go and do a transaction and have their claim settled, that is fraud. Once we find out, we will remove it from the plan. If you try to doctor a receipt or an invoice that was provided to you by a doctor, that is fraud. We will remove you from the plan. Any sort of fraud that we pick up on, we will remove persons from the plan. And CECU actually has an audit team, right, that goes through claims randomly. So this is what they do on a daily basis, but they will just pick claims at random and go through these claims in detail and extra detail with a fine-tooth comb to ensure that we do not have fraud taking place on the plan. And it's not just to protect CECU, but it's also to protect our insureds, right? Because sometimes the fraud can be taking place by the provider and our insured clients are not even aware, right? So when we go through the claims for fraud, we're not just looking for fraud committed by our insured, but we're also looking for fraud that may be committed by the provider. So it's really just to protect you, right? But once we pick up on anything, we would have to remove you from the plan. So we talked about claims via the card, which is the feature that most persons enjoy because it's easy, it's fast, and again, you don't have to pay 100% of your expenses. However, the card is typically for transactions that are $5,000 and below. It's for small transactions. It's going to purchase your glasses, going to test your eyes, going to do some dental work, going to purchase your drugs, etc. But when we're talking about bigger claims, those claims have to be submitted via a regular claim form, right? So yes, we are enjoying the technology, but the technology is only up to a limit. Traditional paper claim forms are still very much needed. And for traditional paper claims, you have 90 days to submit your claim. So let's just say you went to the doctor on the 1st of January, you have up until March 31st to submit that claim, right? And for claims that are for prescription medication, it's not a regular, there's some pharmacies that might have an old cash register and you just get a little chit that tells you the total amount of your expenses. We can't use a chit like that to submit a claim. So when you're submitting claims for prescription medication in particular, you have to have a very detailed bill. So your detailed bill has to state the date, the patient's name, the prescription number, the name of the attending physician, and the name and cost of each drug that you purchased, right? And then there's a note that says an updated diagnosis is required from your attending physician every 12 months for chronic illnesses. So I would have alluded to that before, where I talked about you visited a doctor 2 years ago. The doctor told you you had high blood pressure and they gave you a prescription and you never went back to the doctor after that. We don't want that occurring on the plan. So we want you to go back to your doctor, make sure that your prescription is still the same. There are instances where you mightn't even need the medication again, or there may be improved medication that the doctor wants to switch you to, or he might want to reduce your dosage. A various number of things can be, take place during your first visit and your next visit. So we ask that once it's chronic illnesses, make sure that you visit your doctor every 12 months. So one of the benefits to being on a CECU group plan is that if for some reason you come off that group plan, you have the option to convert that group plan to an individual policy. So the way insurance works is that in order to get insurance, you actually have to be medically underwritten in order to qualify for insurance. So a lot of persons think because they apply for insurance and they can afford to pay a premium, they qualify for insurance, but that's not how insurance works. What purchases insurance is good health, right? Premiums and money do not purchase insurance. Good health is what purchases insurance. So if you're actually not healthy, you will not be able to get an insurance plan. Even if you tell the insurer, I could pay $15,000 a month, but you are not healthy, the insurer is going to tell you no, right? So the benefit of being on a group plan is that when you leave the group, and you are going over as an individual, you're no longer with the credit union, right? You are entitled to get individual coverage without any medical questions being asked. So again, as mentioned, as a regular individual, a regular man off the street, you have to be medically underwritten in order to qualify. But the benefit that you have with being on Canning's plan is that when you leave Canning's plan for whatever reason, you have no reason to leave because it's a really good plan, right? But if you choose to leave for some reason, you have the option to get individual coverage without any medical questions asked. And this is the criteria on the screen for being able to convert that group policy to an individual policy. And so we've reached basically the end of the presentation. What we have on the screen is some frequently asked questions, right? I believe that this presentation will be shared afterwards, right? So we don't have to go through each question. What we could probably do now is address any questions in the chat that may not have been answered before. So Chanel, I don't know if you want to let me know what questions have not been addressed as yet.
Yes,
I could,
sure.
Okay, well, I'm also taking a look in the Q&A, right? So I'm seeing someone asking, if you're an existing member who is transferring to surgical, are all of your pre-existing conditions covered? And the answer to that is yes. If you are transferring across from the Gen Med plan, you don't have to, you are not barred by that pre-existing condition limitation clause. All of your pre-existing conditions will be covered. However, if you are not on the plan currently and you are applying to come on, then you will be limited to the pre-existing condition clause. All right, do we have, I did see that some of the questions were answered in the chat and in the chat. So, but I just want to stress on, so we do have these FAQs which will be shared, right? But one thing I want to stress on in particular is number 9. I did see someone ask about the scanning and the claims. So if you do have a paper claim that needs to be submitted, you can submit them to a plan administrator. And we do have the email addresses here. It would be info@cecu.com or nicole@mycecu.com. And if you have any queries, those are the same email addresses that you would submit your queries to. Or you can use these CECU Care Mobile 772-1834.
Hi, Crystal. We have a member, Jacqueline Hyacinth, who she's raised her hand. So I'm assuming she wants to ask a question specifically. So I'm going to ask Darvel to unmute her microphone so that she can ask her question. Jacqueline, are you able to unmute your microphone?
It doesn't seem so.
I'm not seeing anything coming up. Jacqueline, if you're not able to unmute, just let us know in the chat so we can work on that. I am seeing additional questions coming in though, so we can probably deal with those and kind of look through if there are any questions from before that haven't been addressed.
All right, so I see one here that's asking what age is retirees? Is it 60 or 65? So the retiree plan starts from age 65, from your 65th birthday, and goes all the way up to age 99.
Okay, so there's another one that asks, does the chiropractor visit have to be referred by a GP?
No, it doesn't. So you do not require a referral for specialists, physiotherapy, psychiatrist, psychologist, acupuncture, or chiropractor. But what we would say is that any type of doctor or specialist that you visit, they must be registered with, for instance, the doctors would be the medical board, the psychologist would be that psychology board, psychiatry board, as well as the chiropractic board. It can't just be any old person. They have to be registered with their particular regulatory body.
Right, along that same line, someone is asking if speech therapy is covered.
All right, so we usually cover items like, well, it depends on what the speech therapy is for, right? So, for example, if you have, or if one of your dependents has suffered an accident that requires some type of rehabilitative speech therapy, then that is usually covered under the physiotherapy benefit.
Right,
Okay,
I have someone asking, sorry, to explain the local ambulance part, the local ambulance benefits, and when was the last RNC revised?
Okay, so the local ambulance, that would be the ground ambulance, right? So if you require an ambulance to take you to a medical facility because you're having a medical emergency, then your benefit covers 100% of the cost of that ambulance. In terms of the RNC, so RNC listing is thoroughly reviewed every 24 months, but we do make updates based on the information that's received, right? So CECU is also a member of the AHIP board, which meets to discuss claims and to discuss different things. So if we are seeing that certain procedures, maybe we had a cost assigned of, let's say, $10,000 as the RNC in the past, but we are seeing this procedure coming in and we've seen that most of them are coming in at $15,000 now, the AHIP board would meet and decide that, okay, maybe a more reasonable and customary amount would be $15,000. So there are cases where we review on a kind of ongoing basis, but generally every 24 months, we do a thorough review of the RNC listing.
Okay,
And
I want
another
to just
Sure,
before we
go
go on
ahead,
with the
Kelly.
other questions, I know we have a few persons raising their hand. Let's try with
Wow.
Hyacinth one more time because I know she indicated that she could unmute now. So we'll give her a chance to ask her question.
Hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My question was, the person that is aged 60 to 64, even though physically retired, is that person still considered an active?
Yes, so based on this particular plan, the active goes up to your 64th birthday, even if you might be a retiree at work, right?
Right.
But it's for the purpose of membership, it goes until age 60, well, till your 65th birthday.
Okay, and if you submit, I submitted claims early June, early July, but I haven't seen anything coming back.
Okay,
How much do I have to submit before I get reimbursed?
So you are on the active plan, I want to guess?
Yes, I'm not 65 as yet.
Yeah. Okay, so your deductible will be $950. So once that has been satisfied, well, 900, sorry. So once that has been satisfied, the plan will start reimbursing.
Okay.
What I would say is that there would have been a little period of transition between the GenMed plan and the CECU plan. So it would not have been up and running at the very beginning of June, right? We would have been getting the plan ready because it was a very, very short time frame to transition between the two insurers. So if you have submitted claims and you're expecting a reimbursement, just give us a little time because the plan was, I guess, in the beginning of July was when we would have gotten everybody on board and started printing your cards and stuff like that, right? So just give us until the end of July to really get the reimbursement started at that 5 to 10 business days for the paper claims.
Okay, and one more thing. You mentioned $5,000 medical drugs for the year.
Yes.
Yeah, can you just go into a little more detail on that, please?
All right, yeah. So any prescription drugs that you have, let's say, for instance, you may have, I don't know, diabetes, right? For example, for the year, any drugs that you send in a claim for, the total we will reimburse for any prescription drugs would be $5,000 in any calendar year for you as the insured and for each of your dependents.
Okay.
So it's 70% of the cost of the prescription drug up to $5,000 for the calendar year.
Okay, fine. All right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
We have two more members who have raised their hands as well, Cynthia Monroe and Solange Gomes. So I'm just asking Darvel to unmute their microphones so that they can ask their question. I think Cynthia, you should be able to, well, both of you. So let's go with Cynthia first. You should be able to unmute to ask your question.
Yes, good evening, everyone. My question is, if you have a chronic ailment, but you are in a clinic, the hospital clinic, and you are given a prescription for prescribed drugs, would that be covered as well?
Okay, so you mean in the government, well, in the hospital, right? Like the public hospital.
Yes.
Well, so you
Yes.
have two options, right? You can try and get it filled in the public hospital, which would be free.
Right.
But if they don't
Mhm.
have it available and you do need to get it fulfilled in the pharmacy, you can use that prescription and you will be reimbursed for it. Of course, it has to be, you have to send in either use your carry care card to swipe or send in a paper claim.
Okay, and my other question is, I'm just asking, if you are bedridden and you need to use the card to at the pharmacy, I heard you all said that the person has to have the ID, etc., etc. But could somebody else fill that prescription for the person using their card and information?
Yeah, so in circumstances like that, the person will probably need to send their ID card along with their carry care card and the prescription to be able to get it filled at the pharmacy, but ID must be presented.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right. Thank you. Those were my two questions.
You're welcome.
Solange, would you like to unmute your microphone to ask your question? I'm also seeing Sharolan raising her hand, so we'll prepare for your mic to be unmuted as well. Solange, you can go ahead.
Hi, good evening.
Good
I saw a
evening.
question and I wasn't sure if it was addressed. Is there a waiting period for in my case, I'm a transferred from the previous plan for dental and vision right now?
Right. So for transferred members, no, there's no waiting period for dental and vision. But if there is a new member, right, somebody who's now going to join the plan, they would be subject to the waiting period for the dental
Okay,
and
so if
vision.
I enroll with my dependent transferring over, we can go tomorrow and there's no waiting period for dental
Correct.
and vision.
Yes.
That was one. Secondly, and I think I saw it in some of the chat because I also asked it, how do you determine who is the primary in terms of I have this is surgical. I mean, my primary, if I have a job, is that my primary? And I send it into my job and I put surgical as the additional, like, or do I look
Yeah.
at my two plans
So
and think, well, who may cover more and determine that to be my primary?
no. So okay. So how it usually works in the market is that if you have an employer plan, that is usually a primary plan, right? If the other plan you have is an individual plan, and then you have this credit union plan, it would be which plan has the first effective date, right? So this plan is with Sagicor now effective June 1st, but you have an individual plan that you started, I don't know, 10 years ago. That individual health plan will be a primary plan, and this plan will be a secondary plan. For children, so for example, if yourself and your husband, let's say, is covered on, and you only have this plan, right? And you and your husband covered under this plan, but he may have a plan with work. His plan will be his primary plan. So the plan he has with work is his primary plan, and then this will be his secondary plan. If you have children, the husband's plan is the primary plan, and then the wife's plan is the secondary plan, and that one is standard across the market.
Right. So if this plan is effective the 1st of June, and then you start a plan at your company secondary to that, it still becomes the primary because it's at your job.
Yeah, your employer plans are usually your primary plans.
Okay. And I think lastly, in terms of the preventative, there's the $1,000 and there's a
Yeah.
range of things, which,
Correct.
as I mentioned, you can get for less than 1,000. But I mean, if you're doing everything, I don't suppose you can, a pap smear, mammogram, etc., etc. I've had issues in the past, and I'm not sure how to address it in terms of if I go to get my mammogram done, I think that is obvious. That's preventative. But then if I go to do my pap smear after, and the doctor puts annual on it, it gets subject to preventative, and more than likely I don't get paid because it falls under preventative and I may have maxed out my preventative. Is there a way then that it can be a regular doctor specialist visit that it gets paid under a doctor's visits? Because, well, let's just say, I mean, I'll be more specific. He is a specialist, one.
Yeah.
And when I go, it's the visit to him, which is the annual. Then he does the smear and he does an ultrasound. So it's usually like 3 things to do. And then he might recommend me to go and do a further test afterwards. And I've had the experience where I think because I see him once a year for the most part, it all gets lumped as preventative, and everything that he does kind of gets weighted off as that, so nothing gets paid, the additional blood tests, etc., etc. So how does that differ from me going for a checkup and getting treated versus the preventative?
All right, so a checkup, generally speaking, a checkup will really fall under your preventative, right? So anything that is not, once you are not ill, so your medical, strictly the medical portion of your plan is for reimbursement if something is wrong with you, right? So if you are ill or you have symptoms of something and you need to get it diagnosed, then that is treated with under the medical portion of the plan, which is subject to the deductible and co-insurance, right? Any testing that you are doing that is preventative in nature, and I understand your question, any preventative care goes under the preventative portion of the plan, right? So if it is, let's say it came up to $1,500 and your preventative care is $1,000, you would only be reimbursed $1,000. The extra $500 does not go under the medical plan because what you are doing is preventative in nature and there is no diagnosis attached to it. So I do understand what you're asking. If your preventative care turns out to be more than the maximum, then the balance is out of pocket for you.
Okay, understood. And I guess lastly, I mean, how effective or the communication is when you have 2 different insurance companies that you have to, the co-insurance with. I mean, especially I would say I've experienced this many years ago challenges where same thing, father, mother, you send the dependent through the father first. I don't want to call names, but let's just use Guardian as an example. You send through Guardian and they get all the originals and you expect them, when they're done, to send it to CECU. But Guardian is not my primary. I have no business calling Guardian to ask about the claim that I am waiting to send to CECU. But for whatever reason, it's taking however long. And then there's this 3-month window that CECU needs to get, documents to adjudicate. What is the experience in terms of, or what is how do we address that if we find, Guardian is taking too long, or I check in with CECU and they say, well, no, we haven't received anything from you. And I am like, well, Guardian has paid their portion as yet already a month ago, but CECU says they received no documents from Guardian. And I mean, it's a real issue that I experienced in the past. So I don't know if other persons, and which is where the card was nice, where you just swipe. But if you do have 2, you have to go through the paper, and now you're out of pocket and waiting for 2 persons to settle. So is there any redress to which way do we tackle to find out where the documents are lost in translation? And I promise that was my last question, so other persons can ask.
Yeah, no problem. So one way to help with that is that, so normally when you send across a claim to, if CECU is not your primary, you send it across to another insurer, what they are supposed to do when they process it is send it across to us, right? But if you find that is not happening, what I would suggest is that you touch base with your Canning's administrator. If you have the explanation of benefits from the claim being processed by Guardian, you can get that along with a copy of the original claim. So I would always suggest that if you have any paper claims that you're sending in, to take a picture of it, right? Take a picture of the claim plus or a scan of the claim and all attachments. Once you send it across to Guardian, for example, and you have gotten an explanation of benefits back, you can attach the explanation of benefits that you would have received showing what was reimbursed onto the claim, the copy of the claim or the scan of the claim, and send it into Cannings, and they can send it across to us, right? That is one way. If you find that you're not getting your reimbursement sent across in a timely manner, that we would be able to treat with it, but you must have the explanation of benefits from Guardian, showing that it has been processed and what has been reimbursed.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Oh, okay, we're going to move on now. In essence, to give everyone a fair chance to ask questions and also to have the questions in the chat addressed, we're only allowing the next 2 persons who have their hands raised to actually turn on their mic to ask questions. After that, you're going to have to put your questions into the chat. I'm also asking the 2 persons that we're allowing to ask via mic that you limit your questions to just 1 or 2 questions. And that's just to be fair to everyone who is logged on to the webinar. Okay, so I'm going to ask, I think, Sharolan, you should be able to unmute your mic and ask your question.
Hi, pleasant good night. Are you hearing me?
Yes, we're hearing you.
Okay, well, I took notes. Well, I will try to compact everything. It's more than 2, but I'll compact it. But before I go, if I can just piggyback off the last response to the caller, what I usually do, when I'm sending to my primary, I copy everything as the lady said, and I will send it simultaneously. So I hand it into my job, and I will send it to Cannings, and just let them know with an email, a footnote that, I have just submitted it to work. So this is what it was submitted. So just in case you don't get it in a timely manner, this is what it is. Just in case they don't get it and any follow-up has to be done. So moving on to my question now. Well, I had so many, but I know you said the 60 plus, you answered that one. However, there was a question that I wanted to ask and someone asked, but I wasn't sure what you said. With the prescription, if it's from a government agency, right? You said you can go to the pharmacy and purchase, but you don't need a doctor's, do you just put a prescription receipt from the pharmacy, or you need a doctor to specify or some form of documentation from the hospital stating that that medication was prescribed for you, or the prescription would be satisfactory? That's
Right.
one.
So,
Okay, go ahead.
Right. So if you get a prescription from the public hospital, when you take it to the pharmacy to get it filled, right, they would be able to give you that detailed receipt. And I mean, on it, they would say that it was from, let's say, Port of Spain General, or from Mount Hope, or from Sandy Grande Hospital, right? So the prescription would still be like any other prescription you get from a doctor. So you can still use the prescriptions from the public service. If it's not available at the public hospital, take it to the pharmacy, get it filled, and ask them for that detailed receipt if you're not going to use your carry care card, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're using a carry care card, then you wouldn't need to submit a paper claim.
Okay. But I can do that without going to my primary, right? Or I do
Yeah,
still
because
have
you would
to
have seen a doctor in any public hospital.
Yeah.
So yeah. Once it's a legitimate prescription, you can either use your card to swipe at the pharmacy or get it filled, send in the claim form, and get that detailed receipt from the pharmacist.
All right. My second question, you mentioned if it is that you to leave the plan and turn into an individual plan, does the premium remains the same, or does it go up or goes down? B, I'm compacting my questions. The carry card, how do you collect it? Do you collect it at Sagicor or Cannings Credit Union? And also, I saw there were some names, Miss Jensen or Jensen McConey and Khadijah Douglas. Do we go directly to them by way of contact? What you had in your
All right. Yeah.
your slide with their extension numbers in case there's an issue, or do we go to the credit union?
All right, so let me answer the first one, which is the conversion, right? So if for any reason you decide that you're moving on from this health plan and you want to convert to an individual plan, well, first of all, you would have had to be on this plan for 2 years, right?
Sorry?
And you would have had to be on this plan as it exists with CECU right now for a minimum of 2 years before you could convert to an individual health. When you convert to the end,
Move on. I have to be with Sagicor or with the credit union?
no, on the plan with CECU.
Oh, because I've been on the medical plan with the credit union for years.
No, I understand, but it's
Okay.
is with the provider on the
Alright,
plan
okay.
for 2 years, right? I mean, so when you convert, individual policies are priced differently, and it is based on your age and gender, right? So, but it's typically more expensive, and there are different deductibles as well. So this plan has a 900 deductible if you're on the actives, but individual plans have up to a $15,000 deductible. So it depends on what deductible you choose, and then what is your age at the time. So it could be more expensive depending on what option you convert to.
Oh, okay then, because I'm retiring in 235 days and a couple hours.
Okay,
Yes,
well, but you will still be on this plan, right? So
yes.
once you're 64 and under, you'll be on the actives, and if you're 65 and over, you'll transition across to the retirees.
All right, and the collection of the card.
So the cards, you can collect them at the Canning's office. We have sent them across, and I guess they will be packaging it, and Kelly will let you know when they will be available for collection.
I was just about to jump in there, Crystal. So we would have received a majority of the surgical cards, and you would have, I believe it is Monday, we would have sent an email blast out to all the members on the medical plan advising that you can start collecting at the office. To walk with your ID when you're collecting. If you are sending someone to collect the card on your behalf, please give an authorization letter and a copy of your ID so that we can release it. Okay, so you guys can start collecting from the office. There are a few cards that I think for some dependents, Crystal, we would have advised you guys. We haven't received those as yet, but that's in the minority. Majority of the cards we have. So all the members can begin collecting their cards at the office.
Would the liaison officer be able to collect the cards for the members of the organization that they work for, or everybody has to come personally?
If anyone is collecting on behalf of the member, there must be an authorization letter issued, signed by the member.
Okay.
Simply because these cards are swipe cards. So it's not just a card saying, okay, Sagicor, this is an actual card that you can go and swipe and receive benefits. So we can't release it to any and everyone. So once someone is collecting on your behalf, you have to issue an authorization letter, a signed authorization letter advising Jane Smith is who bears ID number, whatever, is collecting the surgical card on my behalf.
Okay, then I'll pass it along because I'm the liaison officer for my company. So I'll pass it along.
Yeah,
thank
so
you.
if they all give if they all give authorization letters, there's no problem. You could collect all on their behalf, but they've got to authorize you to do that.
No problem. All right, thank you very much. Give someone else a chance.
No problem. Okay,
I was
so
just
the
gonna
last
touch
person.
on. I was just going to touch on her last thing, which is okay. So if your card is not working at the provider, right? When you go, because it could be an issue on the back end, it could be an issue with the provider, internet, it could be the various issues, right? So if you are at the provider and the card is not working, then you ask the provider to get in touch with us, right? And those are the two extensions that they can use to call us directly if you are right in front of the provider, right? For any other types of queries or the submission of claims, you're going to have to go directly to the email address or the mobile number from your Canning's team. Right? That's just to address that particular question.
Okay, great.
I think we have one more person with
We've got one more person we're allowing to unmute their mic, and that is Mrs. Ali. You can proceed, Mrs. Ali. After that, all questions are going to come through the chat. We just have about 15 minutes left because I know we started about 15 minutes late. So we
Yeah.
just have about 15 minutes left in this session. So Mrs. Ali, you can proceed. And I know the Sagicor team has been answering questions via the chat. So any unanswered questions will be dealt with right after. Mrs. Ali, you can proceed. Mrs. Ali, are you able to unmute your microphone? Are you hearing us? Okay, I guess we can, Natalia, you can proceed. Oh, Mrs. Ali is saying no. You should be able to unmute your microphone, Mrs. Ali. If not, log out and log back in, and you should be able to. So I will look out for you. Just place your hand up. In the interim, Crystal, Talia, if there are any questions coming in the chat, we can probably go ahead with those until Mrs. Ali logs back in.
Yeah. So Crystal, I would probably lead the ones and the questions in the chat. So it says, what would I need a referral for colonoscopy for preventative care?
So the answer to that is okay. If it's preventative care, you don't need a colonoscopy. You don't need a referral, right? And it's only for persons age 50 and over, and we would only reimburse a maximum of 1,000. If you need a colonoscopy because you're having some symptoms that something may be wrong, then that goes under the medical portion of your plan and would require you to get a diagnosis from your doctor, and that will be reimbursed at 70% of the cost of the colonoscopy after the deductible has been satisfied. So once it's preventative, you don't need a referral, but it's going to be capped out at 1,000, and it's only for persons age 50 and over to access under the preventative portion of the plan.
Right. The next question I'm seeing here, does the online benefit for lenses extend to contact lenses as well?
Yes, it does. So as Talia would have mentioned, what you'll need to get to be able to get reimbursed if you purchase it online would just be that you need a detailed invoice from the online provider. You attach that to a claim form and we will reimburse it. Just a reminder that it's either contact lenses or traditional frames and lenses together. We don't reimburse for frames alone, whether you bought it online or whether you bought it at a provider locally. It must be frames and lenses together or contact lenses on their own.
Right. Another question, well, not a question, but this person is saying, does it mean that persons would never be able to use their surgical cards if they have, with coordination of benefits, if they have two insurers?
Yeah, but unfortunately, that is one of the realities. If you do have two insurance plans and you wish to coordinate them, then you would not be able to use the card. I think one of the other questions that I did see is what happens if your two insurers is Sagicor. So you would still need to submit the claims via paper claim, because what we would need to do is determine which plan is supposed to get the initial, which one of the plans with Sagicor is primary. So even if you have two plans and they both with Sagicor, you just submit one claim form to us. And of course, you would state that on the form, the part that if you have any other insurance, you said yes, and you say that it's with Sagicor. We will look it up on our systems. If one is an employer plan and one is this plan, then we will know how to coordinate between the two and which plan should be the first payer and which plan should be the second payer, and we'll process your claim accordingly.
Yeah, one person on terms of vision is asking if each eye has a different prescription strength, which means I require two contact lens boxes. Would only one box be covered?
Right, so contact lenses are covered in any 12-month period up to the maximum, right? So when you submit your claim for your 2 boxes of contact lenses, we will reimburse up to 1,000 for the total bill. So if the total bill comes up to 1,500, then you'll be reimbursed 70% up to 1,000. So it's not really first box, second box, but when you submit your claim all together, we will just reimburse up to the maximum amount on the plan.
Sure. Okay, I'm just browsing because some of it was answered already.
I saw Miss Ali was back. I
Is
don't know if
there
she's able to unmute
to
now.
unmute?
I think Darbel is working with her to be able to unmute. Miss Ali, are you able
I'm
to?
able. Yes, I'm able.
Yes.
Are you hearing me?
Where
Yes,
we
I'm
not
hearing you.
You're hearing Crystal? Okay.
Yeah, it's soft, but I'm hearing her.
Okay.
Good night. I think the question, my question was partially answered, but I'm not quite clear on it. If I have two insurance and both are the swipe card system, of course I know the primary is my employer's, okay?
Mhm.
And I use my employer and I swipe. How do I submit a claim for the secondary, which will be surgical? How does
Okay.
that work since both are swipe cards?
Yeah, so the system does not pick up. Well, one, it can determine which is primary, and if you swipe one for 70, you can't swipe the other one for 30, right? What we may be able to normally we say no to either, but what we may be able to accommodate is if both plans are with Sagicor, and it's something like you really do need to submit the paper claim because persons are not always clear on which one is the primary and which one is the secondary. So I know you might say it's your work one, right? But you really should submit a paper claim for us to coordinate the benefits manually between the two.
Okay, no problem. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Right. Is there a waiting period for maternity benefits if the member was enrolled on the previous plan?
No, so any
Right,
pregnancies that would have started before the plan was transferred and you are transferring across, those claims for that pregnancy will be honored. The waiting period and the eligibility for pregnancy would only apply to persons who are now coming on the plan, not those that would have transferred across from the previous insurer.
Right, there are ophthalmological tests that are recommended when diagnosed with glaucoma. Are these tests covered?
Yeah, so glaucoma will be a medical illness, right, or ailment of the eye. That is covered under your medical plan, and the test would be covered under the diagnostic benefits on the medical part of the plan. If you're going to an ophthalmologist, which is a specialist, those visits are also covered under the medical plan, under the specialist visits.
Yeah, so that's it for the questions in the chat. The last one is if the recording would be available afterwards, and that's for you, Kelly.
I was actually just in the process of replying to that, so I'll just reply yes. And actually I was going to say towards the end, we are the recording and the presentation will be loaded to the website so that members can access in the future. What we will also do is the link to this presentation along with the presentation will be emailed to all the members who are currently on the CECU Care plan. So even if you have members who couldn't log on for some reason or the other, they will have access to it and they can look at it and understand what's really taking place with the plan now.
Yeah.
Okay, this is the final call for any questions because we are going to start the wrap up.
All right, so I'm seeing someone is asking if you would get the booklet concerning Medicard. Yes, that would be sent across to the Cannings team. And of course, the schedule of benefits as well as the booklet, which will help explain some of like how the plan works and how to submit things. Those things will be sent across to Kelly and team, and they will send it out to you guys.
And what we can also do, because I believe we also received the listing of the Medicare discounts and the list of places, we can probably, we can probably include that in the same email that we're sending out with the recording and the presentation. We can probably also include that listing so that members have it a little earlier for reference.
I'm seeing one hand raised, Mr. Neil Garcia.
Okay, we're going to allow Mr. Garcia. This is the last person we're unmuting the mic for. Mr. Garcia, is it that you want to ask a question? Are you able to unmute your mic? Sorry. Mr. Garcia, are you able to unmute your mic? Can you let us know in the chat box? Or did you raise your hand in error and not have a question? Nothing? Okay,
No, he
he's
said he
having some
cannot
problems
unmute.
unmuting. Darvel, you want to give some assistance? Mr. Garcia, it may mean that you have to log out and log back in. Yes, if there are any additional questions down the line, you can ask Nicole. Nicole Cabrera is our insurance administrator. So any questions outside of the webinar, you can send them to Nicole. If there's anything that we at CECU are not too clear on, we can't answer, we will reach out to the SAGCO team to get a response and advise the members. Let me just ask one more time, Mr. Garcia, are you able to unmute now? Okay, he said he will ask Nicole, not a problem. So I want to take this opportunity to thank the SAGCO team for giving of your time this evening, tonight, and to facilitate this session. It was really engaging. It was very educational. I think the members have appreciated the opportunity to just get a better understanding of the CECU Care Plan, and also just to be able to ask some of the questions that they may have had, or clear up any questions that they had. So we really appreciate you guys sharing the presentation, sharing your knowledge, and also taking the time to answer our members. As I mentioned before, this evening's session, it's been recorded, so it's going to be placed on our website along with the presentation so that you can refer to it in the future. We will be sending out the link via email to all members on the CECU Care Plan currently, so that you can look out for that as well. Coming up later this year, we are going to have additional webinars on various topics. So we encourage all our members to stay tuned and stay updated to what we're going to be offering. So once again, thank you very much. We've come to the end of this evening's webinar. And again, we would like to express our gratitude to SAGCO, and we would like to thank all of our members who joined us this evening. And we really hope that this session has been quite helpful. So thank you all once again, and wishing everyone a lovely night.
Thank you so much. Have a good night, everyone.
Thanks for having
much.
us. Bye, everyone.
Good night.
You're welcome. Bye-bye, everyone.